The idea of biases in the news is a hot topic in today's media debates. We wanted to get an idea of what people thought of biases in mainstream news and see if their opinions would change once presented with a completely objective take on the story.
What do you think of biases in today's news?
I think that they are inevitable in today's society, but at the same time, I would hope that news outlets are as objective as possible.
Okay, and how do you think being subjective, so not being objective, takes away from the credibility of a news source?
I think it takes away all credibility because it's so hard to find a credible news source in today's world.
What do you think of biases in our news system?
I think having bias in the media is bad because when you watch the news, you only get a one-sided story, so a lot of people are misled on what's happening in the world, and I think that's a problem because you can't form a full opinion if you only have a one-sided idea.
What do you think of objectivity in the news today?
I think objectivity is necessary in the news today because it provides the public with the most accurate information, then they can form their own opinions on it.
I think objectivity in the news is necessary and it should be happening because if there's not objectivity in the news, then someone else's opinion is getting into your view of your own opinion.
We then showed them this neutral news network news report with anchor P. Lane Jane.
Good evening. In our top story today, the government shutdown is still in effect since its start on October 1st. The Republican-dominated House has not been able to agree with the Democratic Senate or the Obama administration on a national budget or on whether to raise the debt ceiling. Republicans have been demanding that Democrats agree to stop President Obama's new health care law, but their demands shifted after the Affordable Health Care Act's online marketplaces launched. The latest proposal from House Republicans has been to reopen only certain parts of government programs, but failed Tuesday night as Democrats insisted they would not pick winners and losers among federal services, and the White House threatened a veto. The last shutdown in 1995 and 1996 cost taxpayers $1.4 billion, according to congressional researchers. The political situation is causing some concern about whether Congress can meet a mid-October deadline to raise the government's $16.7 trillion debt ceiling. To address cutting government spending, Republicans have voted more than 40 times to repeal or delay Obamacare, but they failed to block the launch of its online insurance marketplaces on Tuesday. Updates will follow on this latest political crisis in later segments. In other news, New York City police have arrested a cousin in the killing of a 4-year-old girl dubbed Baby Hope, whose body was found in 1991, police said on Saturday. Conrado Juarez told police Saturday that he sexually assaulted and then smothered the girl, as Police Commissioner Raymond Kelly told a news conference. Police detained him at a Manhattan restaurant on Friday, more than 22 years after the girl's death. Juarez was arrested on the murder charge and was awaiting arraignment, according to New York electronic court records. The girl, dubbed Baby Hope by investigators, was never reported missing and just was recently identified. Kelly named her as 4-year-old Angelica Castillo. Her body was discovered underneath cans of soda inside a cooler alongside the Henry Hudson Highway in northern Manhattan in July of 1991. She had been starved and sexually abused, police said. Kelly said that Juarez had told investigators that he ran into Castillo in a hallway when he went to an apartment in Astoria shared by 7 of his relatives. Kelly says Juarez's sister, who has since died, told him to dispose of the body and brought him a cooler. They took the cooler from the apartment and rode in a cab to Manhattan, where they carried it through a wooden area and put it down. In other news, desamorphine, an addictive narcotic popular in Russia, has now emerged in the U.S., specifically Chicago. The opiate is known to rot flesh due to its ability to dissolve fat and muscle tissue in the body. It is being used as a less expensive alternative to heroin, since its base materials are easily obtained. Usually just a concoction of codeine, cough syrup, turpentine, and hydraulic acid, the drug is cheap and addictive, but lethal. In Russia, where the opiate has been prevalent for the past decade, it has been reported that desomorphine kills 30,000 people a year. The U.S. has now reported 3 cases of use of the drug in Arizona and the Will County area of Chicago, Illinois. Desomorphine has been dubbed crocodile, Russian for crocodile, because it leaves a greenish tint and the flesh scales. The drug is cooked in as little as 30 minutes and is then injected. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration does not include crocodile among its online list of drugs of abuse, which include cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and marijuana. I'm Elaine Jane, reporting to you from Neutral News Network, where people come for the news and leave if they have an opinion. Thank you for watching, and good night.
These were their responses.
After watching the video, how has your perception of objectivity in the news changed, or has it changed at all?
It has changed. It was a real shocker because I didn't think that it was going to be so dry and boring. But at the same time, I think that being semi-opinionated can be useful, after all.
After watching the video, has your view of objectivity in the news changed at all, or not, or why?
Well, the video was really boring, so I couldn't really grasp anything, and there was something about a government shutdown. It was so dry, I could not pay attention.
After watching the film, or the news clip, has your opinion on objectivity in the news changed at all, and why?
A little bit, because it's really weird to see people, like newscasters, just talking about like murdered children in a monotone voice, and it makes you uncomfortable, and it's like they're not really reaching out to people, really.
After the video, I think that objectivity in the news sometimes could be a good thing, because if you're not explaining anything with emotion when it's a very emotional matter, then it's going to look very boring and the message may not actually get across or draw anyone's opinion or anyone's, attention to the actual video.
After the interviews, it is clear that all media needs some form of subjectivity when presenting news. Although many people think they prefer objectivity in the news, it is clear that without opinion or emotion, the intensity of a news story is simply lost.